Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm from Belgium, and I was always eager to do stuff and build stuff. I was working for pirate radio in Belgium back in the 80s when I was 13, 14, and ended up at an international school, the European School of Brussels. And then all of my friends went off to college back in their home countries elsewhere in Europe, and I was stuck in Belgium. So I went to the French university. I'm from the Flemish side. And then after college, I was really eager to go somewhere else. And I'd gotten excited about Steve Jobs, and the Mac had just launched. And I'd visited California. That's a whole other story. But I was like, oh, I like it there. I want to be there. And to go to business school, you need to get some job experience. But for law school, you could just apply straight out of college. So that's how I ended up. That was what I had as I applied for law school. And I ended up at Stanford, and it was the right place for me. I like the environment, the physical environment and the weather. I like the people and the culture, and I like being in the middle of Silicon Valley and the energy around the mythology around entrepreneurship and betting on crazy young people and all that stuff. So it ended up being the right place for me. I didn't know I was an entrepreneur. I didn't know I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I had no plan.
And at that time when you were at Stanford, you were in the same class as Peter Thiel, right? What was that like? Was he as philosophical as he is today? How did you kind of approach the classes?
I didn't spend a lot of personal time with him. What did happen to me is when I was in Belgium, I had been politically right of center. In Belgium, we called that I'd been a liberal. And I felt like unions and the government and rules were slowing everything down. It was sort of my general lens on politics and society, if you will, and that Belgium needed more openness and entrepreneurship and less rigidity and such things. And when I landed at Stanford, that's sort of the lens with which I landed. And I was living in East Palo Alto, which is a low-income neighborhood right next to Palo Alto, which back then and even more so now is the heart of the tech industry, right? And very quickly I realized that the United States is a tough place to be poor. And at the law school, there were these really smart people that had the student group called the Federalist Society. And the Federalist Society was right of center US style. And I thought there was an intellectual rigor there that I enjoyed. But very quickly, I felt like there's this sort of abstract way of thinking about markets and freedom and all that stuff that I found appealing as an undergraduate student, but it didn't actually connect with what I was living in East Palo Alto at the beginning of the crack epidemic and the reality of being poor or Black in America. And I became sort of less impressed with that whole intellectual project of the Federalist Society. And I do remember Peter Thiel being part of that. And so I fell out of love with that very, very early on in my US experience. And my political analysis of the United States, it's a beautiful place. And there's so much opportunity and diversity and richness in California, but America is a tough place to be poor. And it can be stupid. And it has a mythology of sole achievement that's not standing or building on the shoulders of others. And the mythology of capitalism being the solutions to everything. Well, we're sitting here in the tech industry that's been funded sort of, I think, from beginning to end by the Defense Department, whether it be NASA or DARPA and the internet. So I don't think, so I'm not sure that sort of the mythology around American capitalism and the power of the free market in its unfettered sort of perfect state is actually the reality of the actual story of what made America great and successful and what has brought us to our best moments. So I was never really bought into the intellectual project after I came here after about a year. It just didn't connect with the reality I saw around me.
Right.